So next up, podcast listeners, the Dalton School in New York City is this very elite and Tony school. Very fancy. I think it's $55,000 a year. $55,000 a year to send your child to this school. I believe it's a school that is K to 12, kindergarten through 12th grade. Imagine your kindergarten you're going to send your kindergartner, your 5-year-old. It's $55,000 just for that. But the Dalton School is one of those very expensive, fancy schmancy private schools in New York City. And they've been engaging in all kinds of really strange behavior, namely teaching children in kindergarten and first graders about masturbation and about sexuality. So they're sexualizing these children, which, by the way, I think they should be arrested for doing this. I really do. But they're doing it by showing them videos, and they're kind of animated videos. And we talked about this last podcast. But the reason we're bringing it up again is because it was just broken with news that Jeffrey Epstein used to teach there. So get this. So you heard that correctly. So the same school today that is teaching about this particular issue of masturbation, they're teaching first graders and second graders and so forth. That same school, Jeffrey Epstein was actually a teacher. So National File magazine says pedophile Jeffrey Epstein was a teacher at the New York prep school that educates 6-year-old children about masturbation. A prestigious New York prep school that has come under criticism for teaching first graders about this subject in a highly detailed video presentation once employed infamous pedophile Jeffrey Epstein in a teaching position during the 1970s, National File confirmed Tuesday. As National File previously reported, first grade students at this $55,000 per year Dalton School were reportedly shown videos explaining and encouraging masturbation as part of sex education lessons. The video features child cartoon characters uttering phrases such as, "Sometimes I touch myself because it feels good," and you can imagine all these other things. Well, we actually have clips from this particular so-called teaching animation video at the Dalton School. And here's the first one. Here it is.
Do you notice that when you say pee-pee, you giggle, but when you say penis, you say it in a serious voice?
I never noticed that before.
Some children and adults feel uncomfortable when they talk about their private parts, so they make up cute or funny names for them.
What's one for a girl's private parts?
Vajayjay!
said no one that I know of. And that is shown, ladies and gentlemen, to kindergartners and first graders at the Dalton School, and the same school that Jeffrey Epstein taught at in the 1970s. You can say, oh, well, that was a long time ago. Do you really think, podcast listeners, that Jeffrey Epstein was a different person in the 1970s? I don't think so. I think anyone that engaged in the kind of behavior as Jeffrey Epstein did over the course of decades was probably always that way. And then, of all places, was a teacher. What I didn't find in the article about Epstein was what grade he taught. I mean, you probably can imagine it was probably middle school or high school, because the guy was obviously a complete predator. So here is another segment of that animated cartoon that your kindergartners will see in the Dalton School. We have that clip, and here it is.
Hey, how come my penis gets big sometimes and points up in the air?
That's called an erection.
Sometimes I touch my penis because it feels good.
Sometimes when I'm in my bath or when Mom puts me to bed, I like to touch my vulva too.
You have a clitoris there, Kayla, that probably feels good to touch the same way Keith's penis feels good when he touches it. But have you ever noticed that older kids and grown-ups don't touch their private parts in public?
They don't?
That's right, Keith. It's okay to touch yourself and see how different body parts feel, but it's best to only do it in private.
Well, if private parts are so special, why do you cover them up?
Because they are private, silly.
That's right, Kayla, because they are private.
So that is what your children are learning at the Dalton School. Now, keep in mind that in kindergarten, usually you're trying to teach children all kinds of things like how to tie their shoes. You're trying to teach them how to recite the alphabet, how to write the letters, not just in lowercase, but in uppercase, and then how to start to spell and how to write sentences and where periods go at the end of sentences and a paragraph structure. I mean, you're trying to teach them all kinds of basic things. You're trying to teach them the English language. And you're also trying to teach them basic math, among other things. And this is what a school decides to teach. And Jeffrey Epstein used to teach there. Moreover, Bill Gates, who said to his wife, Melinda, that he wasn't friends with Jeffrey Epstein, actually, it came out recently that Bill Gates hung out with him all the time and would just go by for visits. Sure. So, it's funny to me strange, because we've read so many articles in so many different kinds of publications, and you get a lot of these conspiratorial folks out there who talk about this cabal of people like the Epsteins and the Gates and all that stuff. But these things do make you wonder, right? It makes you wonder how much of this might actually be true. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm going to go as far as to say that 100% of what I've heard out there in terms of rumors in the rumor mill are true. But one thing's for sure, if you have a really expensive private school teaching this kind of thing, and you have some parents, of course, who clearly are against it, by the way, but so many other parents who just are quiet, they're silent. And then you have this connection with Epstein and Epstein's connection with Bill Gates. And you have, of course, this health secretary who's Dr. Rachel Levine. It sure makes you wonder about what is happening and the mental health of so many of the people, in my opinion, in the Democrat Party, because Bill Gates is clearly a Democrat. I'm sure Jeffrey Epstein was clearly a Democrat. Obviously, Dr. Levine is clearly a Democrat. It's like, what is going on in that party that they think it's okay to have these types of people, show these kinds of things to children and sexualize children? But I thought it was important to bring this up again because it's just kind of an interesting twist that Epstein was a teacher at the Dalton School as well. Shows you that school has been engaged in a lot of unusual things, probably for a very long time. And I would imagine if any reporter really wants to dig up some more things about that school, it probably wouldn't have to look very far.